Okay, so real quick before we start this video, it's my first time doing this. Some sentences don't even make sense, and you know what? I won't even attribute it to the fact that it's my first video. Honestly, I would say it's more so along the lines or among the fact or on the fact. See, it's happening again. But it was 5 to 4 a.m. in the morning, and you think you're forming sentences. The one crazy thing is that I was actually able to compose that late, and it's not a mess. But yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm saying makes no sense. Maybe not all of it, but there are times. And one more thing, shout out to VGO Score. That's a YouTube channel, and they made my dreams come true because I'm able to have all these scores of all this music that I used to listen to back in the day when I was a teenager, and I loved it. I love this music, right? Because I've always loved film score. So I'm using their resources. They're free giving resources, mind you, for educational purposes. So yes, those two things. I sound insane, and video score is so cool. Without further ado, hey everybody, what's going on? So I had an epiphany the other day, and I thought that I could maybe make a series on YouTube about how I educate myself on composing. I've seen many others. They're really good from their perspective. They're more visceral. Some people don't read the notes, or they can't read the notes, but they can't necessarily absorb the harmony, see the instrumentations, all that stuff, right? Just little things. I thought I'd share my point of view and actually show you my real process as to how I learn. It takes time, right? Another thing that you can do is just grab a score and analyze it and do that over and over again so you don't forget it, because I tend to forget these huge pages that have a ton of notes and have particularly a real complex layout, as I like to call it, just a format, right? So what I mean by a format is, if you take this one, for example, I love film score, right? So I'm a real geek for it. So if you take this one, you have, in the first measure at least, a G5 chord, a G minor, right? So, what kind of a G5, G minor? The minor comes from here. That's where all the information is. Because otherwise, you would just have the bass on the cellos, contrabasses, the extensions. So it's gonna be the 5 and the root. So it's basically, if you're thinking about it pianistically, it's G, root, 5, and then root once again an octave above. Right here, you have a arpeggiated harp, and the thing about this is where all the information comes from, right? So if you just hear the 5, you can't tell that that's minor until you get specifically here. So this instrument is the definer of the chord, but more importantly, it's playing a different role, right? So these instruments are playing the bass role. This instrument's playing the percussive. I'm sorry, not the percussive element. The accompaniment, right? And this is playing a percussive element, partially to carry rhythm, but also partially to provide a pad, right? That's how I see it, and that's how I hear it. If you have a timpani over here with a double soft or pianissimo, and it's rolling, it's just really kind of feeling in the air, so it doesn't feel so empty until you get to here, right? So then it starts to sort of define a bit of rhythm. So let's just do my own take on that, right? And oh yes, that's what I was gonna say. So once I've analyzed that, I just sort of like to go and do my own take on what I've seen. So I follow the exact same format, and I just do my own harmony and my own melodies. So let's go ahead and get started. I forgot to lay out the page for only 6 measures per page. That's how I like it. Even though it's here too, but it's just the norm. Even though, fuck. Okay, so let's talk about what we have here so far. And percussion is not happening until usually the end. Sometimes I'll add some percussion before the end, just so I can kind of see a smaller picture of what I'm looking at. Sorry about that, y'all. Anyways, as I was saying, um, so dynamics. Oh yes, percussion. I'm not adding any percussion until usually the end of the piece. So let's talk about the dynamics though. Um, they're a bit different. Let me take this out. So they are a bit different, a tiny bit different from here. And the reason for that is I feel taste wise, this might be a personal thing, but I like it when things come in really, really soft and crescendoing and then build up, right? Even if it's just soft. I like things with a lot of, or very little attack. Sorry, let's go back. This is soft, but it just, especially because it's the software, you know. I kind of want to hear a little more sensitivity, and this software is awful at that. I'm running from MuseScore 3, so the sounds are not the most realistic. But right here, so dynamics wise though, I pretty much, other than that, followed through with it, simply because, you know, it's, that's basically what I've been trying to learn. So I think the most I mimic, the more I get. And as long as you also understand the logic behind it, like for example, why is this double soft or pianismo and this is just piano? Well, they're trying to bring out the harp, right? They don't necessarily have a melody, though you could call this a melody technically, because you can kind of hear an idea, a melodic idea through it, right? It's just arpeggiated, heavily arpeggiated. So let's play it and see what I mean by all of those things, and pay attention to the crescendo, right? So just to see what I mean. Oh, hold on. One thing I missed. This thing can go. And let me come back here. And by the way, y'all, it's an 82, but I'm not a snob, so we're just gonna give it a 80. Let's go ahead and start it. Let's see what I mean by all those things I just said, if you can remember them. Okay, that's the first page, right? So the second page, the measures kind of leak into, so I gotta finish these measures um, with everything that I'm supposed to have finished. So let me come back. Okay, so I just basically finished the first section of this piece. Um, just one more thing, I didn't fully follow the harmony, as I say I don't. So I have a G, E flat major, G passing 6/5, D major onto G6. That means I missed one thing. Oh no, I did not. This is not doubling the thing I forgot. Okay, so I sometimes worry about G6s. So minor sixes are iffy unless you're gonna keep going the sentence. That's what I find. Otherwise, minor sixes are kind of weak. They're not good for resolution. Um, Major sixes are cool, uh, but and I don't mean the C6, right? Not the jazz chord. I mean the third is at the bottom. So let's just listen to that one more time, and let's move on to the next section. Okay, so let's analyze what's happening on the second section. By the way, I'm saying sections not because the melody might change or we're going through a period, a full phrase, whatever. I'm saying that because I'm thinking of how instruments change, right? The layout is changing. So in this one we have the melody on the bassoon, the basses doubling each other on the, I'm sorry, not the bassoon, the oboe. Uh, the contrabasses are, you guys are gonna think I'm so ignorant. So we have right here, anyways, we have the bassoons and the contrabasses doubling each other on bass, arpeggios, or so arpeggiated accompaniment on the cellos, and one more contrasting accompaniment on the harps, which also serves the purpose of what is that? That's filling up space as well. But I wouldn't call it a pad, not just a pad at least, because it is acting like an accompaniment. There's a pattern to it, so it's on 2 and 3 at first, and then it's on 2, 3, 4, and then it repeats over and over again. That's just my notes on that. So let's see what we can do on that. Let me come back again. We can. Okay, so I kind of finished the second page already, even though we're doing by sections, but it's easier to keep track by page as well. So dynamics, melodies being brought out, MP, and then this accompaniments are sort of just less dynamic, less dynamic-y. That's P, right? So it's just softer. Let's see. So yeah, everything is soft except for the melody itself. And actually, let me double that up with the bassoons. Mind you, I do not know whether there are 2 bassoons, 2 flutes, 2 clarinets. This looks like a pretty simple score. I just noticed that in part of this score, for example, in the trumpets and trombones, there are held notes while there are also other notes. So there will be 2 voices, right? So that always implies that there are 2 of these instruments, but it doesn't really say that here, so it kind of confuses me. It says B flat trumpet, trombone, but some parts of the score are not so clear in that manner. So I'm just gonna assume, just like the bassoon, it's 2 right here. I'm just gonna assume it's all the full woodwind section. Let me finish this up before I even show you. Let me come back again. And let me this way. Okay. So let's take a listen. That feels empty, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to have only one of those play. Just a complete solo. Hold on just a second. I think the bassoons are they penetrate. Just woodwinds, they tend to get through everybody, unless you put them here, unless you start playing with the brass. But I think one bassoon, one oboe will do. Okay, that doesn't sound bad. Let's talk about the next section. So the next page, it's just 4 measures for the second page, starting on a melody, right? So on a call and response melody, we have on the second page we have 4 measures of a melody. on the third page, we also have four measures of a call and response melody, right? So this will be the response, and it happens to be located in a different area. So violins 1, all the way down here, that's where the melody is happening. Counter melody is here, and a counter melody is also here, and they're both completely different. So that's gonna be a task, but it's doable. Then we have arpeggios, accompaniment, and then we have bass line. And bass line is being doubled by bassoon. And over here we start to have the pickups for brass. So we're about to get into a different section. We'll get to that, but let me come back. Okay, so I think I'm done with this page. Almost there. Just need to do the pickup measures. So I'm back, and here is my version of some counterpoint. Everything's in the same exact place as it was with this one, right? So my counterpoint is here, my arpeggios are here, bass is, it's all the same. I just chose my notes. One thing I want to know is the harp is a little different here. I actually just decided to stick with the same thing, just whatever. There's enough variation with the counterpoint and the fact that the melody is happening in a different instrument to me, so I didn't mind it too much. Let's hear it from here. Alright, and then let's just hear the difference in the variation. I'm so sorry. So I forgot to do something really important, and that is, if I don't do this, it's gonna be extremely loud because the default is loud. So let me try that one more time. And also, I believe the bassoons. Yep, it's fine. Take this out right here. No need to say the same thing twice. So let's see. And these are actually, I just noticed here. Unless the third page is still soft. Okay, so here it's going to be soft. Sorry about that, y'all. My camera died, so I'm back. Anyways, this thing right here, what was I saying? Yes, the dynamics. So right here, on the harp, it's going to be soft and it's going to be MP. It makes sense, you have a lot more instruments going on. The harp is really loud, but you just have more to put up against, so to speak. There's a lot of players here. Let's just hear this whole thing. I don't like that nowhere near as much as I thought I was gonna like that. I might actually end up changing that, but first of all, there's one thing oh yes, one more thing I did mean to do, since we're putting up against more instruments. I wanted to experiment putting up two bassoons together, two oboes. I swear I said oboe first. Anyways, so this thing right here, I don't quite like where the melody goes in some of these, and I partially used some counterpointal rules, just making sure that I didn't have too many crunchy intervals, right? Just uh, fourths, sevenths, all that good stuff. But at the same time, I didn't really focus on that 100%. Simply because I've also seen other scores where I've analyzed their counterpoint and there's mistakes in them, right? Technically, but it sounds great. And you don't need if you only have three voices, then you have to be really on point with the notes because you're basically implying harmony with those three voices. But in here, there's a lot more information going on, so you have more room. But I still didn't like it. I think I hate this measure. I think I really hate it. I'll change it later. Um, let's see the last part of the measure or the page. Let me come back. Okay, so the last two measures are an interesting thing. So in order to introduce the brass, what our composer has done is he's laid out a D major chord, right? And he's just separated it between the two trombones and two trumpets. Um, the dynamics were a must. Hold on. It's just the effect they create, right? So this is for Sandy, which is telling them to go pretty loud, usually until here. So that's also gonna communicate something different because you're going pretty loud, but not really because you have to build up to something anyways. So there's a lot of for Sandy a lot of accent, but then it's kind of like a doom, you know, if you can understand what that means, but you can't really hear it with this software. If you listen to the recording, which I'll link the link down below, so please go do yourself a favor and listen to this amazing cover. Anyways, so this right here, all of this layout, what I analyzed here is, and this is pretty typical, it's basically going to be one octave here with our violins one and twos, doubling with flutes and oboes, and the clarinets and the violins are going to be down here with a lower octave, same exact notes though. I did it differently because my line's slightly different. So I didn't want to go too low with the clarinets, so I just kept everything the same octave. And the only thing that's a lower octave is the viola, or the violas, right? So let's, without further ado, let's listen. Let's listen to this whole thing. Let's just listen from once again, just from here. Okay, so there it is. I mean, I kept the rhythm the same, but I did something different, right? So I did something a little bit patterny. This is still D. Um, it's the whole scale is a G minor harmonic. So I'm starting from the roots, and then right here I'm starting from the third, all the way up, and then I'm here right here I'm starting from the fifth. Now I wanted to hit a different note at the end, which was the seventh. That's what I heard melodically. So I actually started it from its flat nine, which is E flat. So yeah, let's move on from that and let's analyze our next part. And I think this will be the last part for now. We'll leave part two and three for the finishing of this parody, so to speak. Um, okay, so let's see what's going on here. We have bass line, carrying rhythm, over here as well, tuba, and the contrabasses are doubling. Over here we have a slightly different bass line, just carrying rhythm. It's doubling with the bassoon, I would almost call that an accompaniment. Just be, it's very rhythmic, but it's a little of both. But I would kind of call it an accompaniment. You know, if I'm thinking pianistically, that's certainly an accompaniment. I think contrasting accompaniment though is what's going on with the woodwinds and part of the string section. So in the string sections, this is very typical. So the flutes and clarinets are doubling. Oh, I'm sorry. No, they're not. They are not doubling, but they are playing together. Usually they double. That's really typical. So um, we have two completely different melodies, and they are not our main melody. So the violins, ones and twos. Sorry, just the violin one, and the flutes are doubling together, and the violins, twos, and violas are doubling the clarinets melodies, right? Or whoever melodies they happen to be. So right here, uh, this is not the main melody. This is sort of a counterpoint slash accompaniment melody, right? Just chording things out, just a harmonic filler. It's just that when this is played, it sounds very melodic. It's just great how the voices are moving. Um, and this is where the main melody is, on the horns. Um, let's see. Okay, we have a drum pattern, snare. Okay, so let's recreate. Okay, so I think I'm back. And if you think I look tired, it's because it's late at night for me, technically. Anyhow, let's take this out of the way. Okay, so there's still a couple things missing. For example, I haven't put the glissando effects yet. I also decided to do forte on both of them. That may not be necessary since I have two French horns, or sorry, four French horns as opposed to possibly just two. Um, and I want to experiment possibly putting an octave higher the melody on a trumpet, as well as maybe doing that or doing the French horns against the trombones. So we'll see how that sounds. One thing to note, the drum, snare drum, it has a pretty long pattern. I've seen two measures worth of a full pattern, so those tend to get complicated. Um, as complicated as a pattern like this can get, right? But it's not repetitive. He's two measures because of this difference in here, and it's different, but most of it is the exact same thing, so it fits in perfectly. It's really hard to have something as repetitive as this and get in the way of everything else. So I'm not 100% sure if this is gonna work. But that's really clever right there. Just a full sentence, but keep it simple, right? It still feels it does the job that it needs to do, and it doesn't get in the way. What else was it? I think that's about as much as I want to mention about this section. Let's just let's hear and then let's hear the whole thing. I have to change this, so depending on the pitch, it might give you a different percussive instrument. All I have to do is turn it up or down. There you go. This is on forte, but oh, I didn't even notice that he has a pickup with the snare drums as well. Okay, so something about this pickup. Just a second. Anyways, I'm back one more time. One thing about these pickups that I wanted to say is, so you notice all of these instruments, some of them weren't here, including these guys, and some of them were doing different things, right? So in order to set up for the next section, usually what I see is just pickups, essentially pickups to the next section. You know, instruments never really, or most of the time, they don't come in abruptly, right? So there's a way to introduce them properly, and this is pretty evident right here. You know, so see. Let's see if this is fine. Oh, also the snare from soft to crescendo really sucks. So watch out for that. Let me see. So I'm still not done quite with this, but let's see what this sounds like. Okay, um, I don't really appreciate those voices with these strings, and you know they just don't move as beautifully as this guy does. He is a heck of a composer, you know, but I'm still learning to move my stuff around, so um, don't mind the lesser melodies. Remember, this is for educational purposes only. Let me see. One more thing I wanna try. So, oh, not that. Not that. Try this first. I think it might work with just trumpet, but let me see what it looks like or what it sounds like when the trombones are doing it. It could work if you change the dynamic. No, trumpets were better. Trumpets definitely did it better. Okay, I think that'll be all for now. So I just did it slightly different. I added a trumpet instead. Um, so that'll be all for now. I wanna keep this going. I'm gonna finish all of this. It's like 13 pages though, so uh, 4 pages per time. So we'll have part two and then part three. Um, this is long. This actually took me. I fast forwarded a lot of things, but this took me a long time. Okay, so yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy that. If you guys have any feedback, anything you want to talk about, any kind of questions about me or anything, um, let me know in the comments. You know, I really want to have these kinds of discussions. I love composing these kinds of things. So, you know, by all means, I hope this kind of clears out or gives you a way to sort of self-educate. You know, but that is all for now. So, peace.